Hello and welcome to the Coach Business Podcast. I'm your host and coach, Caryn Gillen. And today we have one of those really cool sessions where I get to coach somebody live. And Laura Jurgens is here and she is a coach. And I want you to tell people who you coach in your words.
Sure, absolutely. So I coach women who want to feel more empowered sexually. I mostly focus on folks who are struggling to find their own brand of desire and arousal and own it in their relationship.
I love it. Awesome. Okay. So, what are we going to coach on today?
We are going to coach on email list communications and effectively using my email list in a way that works for them and me.
I love it. Okay. Well, tell me, how does it work now?
Yeah, so it works like me shouting into the void right now. And I shout into the void with helpful things. I shout into the void, but I have a hard time figuring out how to get engagement from
Mm-hmm.
my email list, even when I have asked. They'll sometimes click on things that I send them, but really trying to hear from them back has been challenging. I also feel like I have really avoided, I have periodically avoided cultivating my relationship with people on my email list. So I have not really known what to do with it. I really enjoy consistency with my podcast. I don't have any problem with that. But when it comes to my email list, I really haven't been very consistent over time.
Okay.
So those are kind of I'm trying to be more consistent, but I would like to have a plan for what that looks like. And I would like to have some sense that there is a point. And right now it feels like there is no point.
Yeah. Because right now, the only points I hear is you want to hear from them and you don't really know what to do over there.
Yeah, I don't believe I've ever had anybody book a consult from my email list. I've started having people book consults from listening, my podcast listeners,
Right.
referrals, all kinds of things, but not from my email list.
Okay. Do you have similar like numbers in terms of people who listen every week and people who are on your newsletter list, or are the numbers different?
I think they might be quite different populations.
Okay. So it's two different groups of people.
I think there's some overlap for
Okay.
sure. And I think I know who several of those people are. So there's some former clients, there's some current clients that are on both. There's a few colleagues and friends. But then there's this like amorphous, I don't know who's on my email list and I don't really know. There's certainly podcast listeners around the world that are probably not on my email list.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But I think what's cool here is that you've identified that you like podcasting. It feels normal and natural to you. You do it
Yeah.
consistently. There's none of this list stuff is happening with the podcast.
No.
Okay. So I think it's just good for us to notice like where we feel like naturals. So you're this natural podcaster.
Yeah, I enjoy it. It's my
Okay.
jam.
So how can we take that line of natural and
Mhm.
shift it over to the list? Like, what are the easy thoughts you have about the podcast and the easy way you have with it? Can you tell us a little bit about that so we can see what might transfer over?
Probably the most obvious thing to transfer over is I really treat my podcast like I'm talking to a friend,
Mm-hmm.
but in a sort of monologue.
My very, very quiet friend.
A very quiet friend who really wants to just listen. Um, and obviously I occasionally have guests on my podcast too, but I don't, and I do try to write from that perspective when I'm writing the emails, but I suppose that there is a sense in my brain that I don't really know who I'm speaking to.
Mm-hmm. And your expectations sound very different. Like I'm writing to my list, I want to hear back from them. It doesn't sound like you have that with the podcast.
Yeah, because I do actually hear back from at least some people.
How does that
Not
work?
a lot of it, like, I have invited people to email me and nobody really does. But I do hear from people in person
Yeah.
about my podcast, whereas I would love to hear more from my email list.
Okay, here's what I love because you have a niche that is like more privacy around it, right? This is about
Mhm.
people's experience of their sexuality, their intimacy, their pleasure, right?
Yep,
And
their relationships, their most important primary relationships. It can be very sensitive for people.
right, it's not the stuff they're going to post about on Facebook. It's not the stuff they're going to want potentially even like evidence of in their inbox.
That is something that has occurred to me. Yes.
Okay. But when I run into you on the street and I feel connected to you because I'm able to listen to you and read your newsletters and stuff. I'm in relationship with you and I can share that out loud proudly. That's like really amazing. So I just wonder about like when we have these kinds of niches where people are like, I want to associate myself to you, but I don't want to do it in a public way at all or acknowledge it until I'm really ready, until I'm ready to work with you. Like I think
Yeah,
this is a thing.
absolutely. That is a thing, except for like, there's a few exceptions where I have like little
Mhm.
groups where I know there's like a friend group that almost like book clubs my podcast together, which is adorable. And I
That's
love
cute.
them so much. But yes, it's mostly a private relationship where they have with me. And I
Yeah.
would like them to feel comfortable having that private relationship with me in their inbox as well as in their ears.
Right. Okay. So I want you to see if there are other expectations you have of your listeners and your readers that are keeping you from connecting to them. Or you could just do all expectations and then we'll see.
Hmm. Like a little brain dump
Yeah.
about.
About like what you think the rules are, about how people who take in your content should show up, or about how this should work.
Yeah, I do think I have a lot of unexamined rules in my mind about emails because I'm so sensitive on emails. It
Mm-hmm.
does feel a little bit intrusive. And I think I have maybe, I have had a lot of experiences where I felt like, oh, how did I get on this email list? Or why is this person not taking me off when I've unsubscribed the umpteenth
Oh,
time?
yeah.
I don't want to be that person. I certainly
Mm-hmm.
don't want to intrude. And I think I might have some ideas that I'm somehow intruding. And so my content has to be extra valuable or something, which is making me feel a little anxious about it.
Mm-hmm.
And also that it has to speak to everyone, which at any given moment, everyone's struggling with different things. It's not going to speak to everyone. I also have geographic variation where I have some people who are local because I do have half my practices in person and half my practices online.
Mm-hmm.
So I have people internationally and then people who are local. And so sometimes I'm confused about messaging around events or things
Yeah.
like that. So I think there's a lot of just like confusion in my
Mm-hmm.
own mind about what's okay
Yeah.
in email.
Yeah. I think in light of lots of confusion, it's really great. Two things come to mind: make some decisions and check in with your values. So
Mhm.
if we made some decisions, it sounds like you're being really careful with the people on your list, but not in a way that's creating a good result for you. Right. Like I think it's lovely to be care filled in how we interact with people on our list. But
Mhm.
when we're like tiptoeing around in our own backyard, it's hard to know how that's supposed to work, right? Because these people they have chosen to be on your list. They've chosen to
Mhm.
stay there. They're there for some reason. So you want to be like, how do I like kind of big warm hug welcome you into this place with me, our special place on the internet where we can talk about these things.
Yeah, I would like to big worm hug them.
Okay.
And I think I have not felt like email. I have not been thinking of email as a way to do that effectively. Even though I do enjoy writing, I want to keep things, I'm always focused on trying to keep things short and useful and not sort of quote unquote bothering people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's getting in my own way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if there's like a basically an experiment around being unapologetic about what you send.
Hmm.
Like that this is for you and this is how I choose to serve you. And it's okay if
Hmm.
you don't want to stay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's definitely how I am in the podcast. So,
Yeah. I feel that like that seems like it's on brand for you.
oh, it's very much on brand for me. You
Okay.
know,
So we need to
yeah.
drag your brand through to this email stuff. It just hasn't made it all the way there yet.
Hmm. That tracks.
Okay. All right. Great.
I'm on board.
Because there's at the start of our conversation, I was also thinking there's a way that you can use your email list as just a platform for your podcast and as a way to just highlight what happens on the podcast. There's also ways where you can have your podcast and your email kind of interchange. Like my podcast is always driving to my email list, and my email list is always driving to my podcast so that you make sure people are getting everything. But it seems like ultimately you want people just to reach out to you and you can help them and they can come from either place, but to get that same energy at both places.
I would love to have the same energy at both places, at least for me, so that my experience is as joyful about the email as it is about the podcast.
Okay.
So at least I'm having fun. And then I think everybody
Yeah,
else sort of, if they like my brand of fun, they get on my party bus and we go for a ride.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about the setup when you're like, okay, I'm going to go record a solo episode. Like, how does that work? What are you excited about? Where does the content come from? How does it all go down?
Yeah. Well, I'm normally noodling on it quite a bit over time. And then I make notes and then I sit down and I do a clear outline. So I'm a former science professor. I've spent a lot of time thinking about how adults learn.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put some effort into making sure I am not wasting people's time on the podcast either, because they
Yeah.
are giving me time of their life and
Right.
attention. And it's presumably to help them. And I'm
Yeah.
not going to mess around and not help them.
Love it.
So we get to it. I give people a clear outline and then I ex really provide the sort of a nugget. There's a lot of de-shaming that goes on in there. There's a lot of just trying to support people being where they're at that goes on in there because of the topics that I deal with, because I deal with intimacy and sexuality, and there's so much shame and repression around those things. People always feel like they have to perform or be somebody different or all kinds of baggage. So there's a lot of clearing that stuff out. I would love the emails to also do that because you
Mm-hmm.
can't get enough of it around this topic. So I could probably approach it in similar ways, but with shorter quantity of information.
You just said a really cool sentence too that I want you to keep for your newsletter
Okay.
is that people can't get enough of this.
Yeah. We
You
can't
have
get
a
enough de-shaming, normalizing,
right.
feeling
So you
seen.
could really write
Yeah.
your list every day of the week. Doesn't mean you're going to, but like if the people really can't get enough of this, like you can really go for it.
I am on the topic of email. My brain is not on board with daily emails, but yes, I
Yeah.
get where you're going.
Yeah. Right. But I mean, I like what you said. You noodle, you take notes, you make an outline, you give people a nugget, you de-shame and you support.
Yep.
You
And
can
I
do
give
that
them a
exact
practical
same thing.
action step, like something
Yeah.
they can implement right away.
Cool. Do you want your would it be helpful for you to basically the second you hang up the mic for your podcast to just go to your Word document or whatever and write out the nugget and get it ready to send for that week's email?
That would be easy. That could be part of my podcast flow because I
Yeah.
already have to, when I record it, right? I have to like go do all the post
Mm-hmm.
whatever, like
Yeah.
make the transcript and upload the audio,
Right.
etc.
You're already in that mode of having noodled and having taken notes, and you've just
Yeah.
talked it all out.
And I write a podcast description, which is basically the nugget.
It's basically a newsletter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So can you let what you're already really great at kind of did you hooky bob when you were a kid? Do you know what that is? Is that a
No,
regional
tell
term?
me. Oh my gosh, I'm so curious.
So hooky bobbing is when you like grab onto the back of a car and you're on like your rollerblades or your skateboard or whatever and you get pulled around by the car.
Oh, no, this
So
is why I didn't die as a child. I didn't do that.
I didn't do a lot of it, but it's a thing. But
Okay.
really, I'm always thinking about how can I hooky bob off of something that's working.
Yeah, a vehicle that's already moving. I get you.
Exactly.
I get you. I
So
get you.
like just catch yourself onto the back of the podcast energy, get that newsletter done and send it out. And it like this will develop new relationship between you and your newsletter. And there might be a time where you're like, no, I want to say something else. And that's totally fine too. But I
Hmm.
think you have everything already laid out to have this really beautiful flow right to your people's inbox.
Yeah. If we imagine that the content being the same roughly in slightly different words or slightly briefer words, and maybe directing people to the podcast for more information.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering what the action step is. What is the call to action? And then how do I just use that as like my nurturing emails?
Mm-hmm. It's your
That
nurturing
seems
email.
like the way to go, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so what you can do is like just always direct people over to your podcast from your list. And you always want to get people from your podcast to go to your list, right? Those things are always happening when they
Hmm.
want more info. And then sometimes you just are writing along and you notice that this is a really great topic for you just to pitch your sales consult and that people should get on the phone with you. So I think like making sure that you're remembering to do that and not just using your email as nurture only. Um,
Hmm.
but giving yourself some grace here, knowing that like you're learning how to love this thing and like do what you need to do to love it and then grow it from there.
Yeah, okay. I think that's seems like a reasonable and pretty easy step to implement. And then I just need to be okay with it being a, this is one of the things I've been learning lately. You will laugh at me. Things take time to show results.
Things take time to
I
show
know this
results.
in so many areas.
Mm-hmm.
And then in my business, sometimes I completely forget that. So
Yeah.
it brings me, compassion when other people have the same struggle in different areas, but it will take some time to implement, and then I can just see how that goes.
Yeah. But the most important thing is how am I relating to my own list? Because it sounds
Yeah.
like that relationship that you had with your list wasn't one that was generative.
Yeah, I think it has felt hard to imagine. It's felt hard to know who's there and what they need. And so then I've been unclear about what I do. And this conversation is helping me realize that actually I don't have to do it in that direction. I can do it in the
Exactly.
direction of what do I want to offer, and then that will the people who will be there will be the people who want what I have
Yeah.
to offer by being on my email list.
Yeah. And you kind of led us into that in one of your very first sentences. It's what do they want from me and what do I want from them? And in this instance, it's like this is your business. You direct the work,
Mhm.
you serve in the way you want to, and the right people will show up. So give yourself that freedom to show up in the way that you want to, because then you're going to have the best experience of your clients, right? It's sort of
Yeah,
like the difference between being on social media for the algorithm versus being there for our people. That
yeah,
produces two completely different styles of content. And you're a person who is here for your people, but you got to do it from exactly who you want to be and how you want to support.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah. All right.
you're in charge. You've got this. You know how to love content creation. You do it already with your podcast.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the content. There's a million topics. There's all kinds of issues to bring up and
Mhm.
remind people of if I haven't reminded them of in a little while.
Yeah.
So the content's not really the problem. It's been sort of how,
Hmm. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
just,
And
copy and paste over from the same approach and
yeah.
let whatever happens happen. I think I've gotten a little bit hung up on how other people do things.
Yeah. That makes sense. And I think we have to cut ourselves loose from all those other weird people expectations that
Mhm.
our brains turns into business
Mhm.
rules.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that you get to do this your own way. And that
Yeah, that's the only thing that's ever worked.
exactly for me too. For me too.
Otherwise, I quit. I'm like, ah, screw this.
Yeah. Right. So in terms of longevity, this is going to work out really well. And then my only last thing is like when we are writing, to write to one person is always the easiest. So even if you don't know who is on your list, just choose that like ideal client that you've been wanting to work with, and write everything for them because that'll really capture the energy of who it is you're looking for and give that to everybody else.
Great. I
Yeah,
can do that.
you can totally
Yeah,
do that.
I can absolutely do that.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay,
Well,
thanks.
that'll be fun.
That was easy.
That was easy,
I like
especially
it.
for me. All right. Thank you for being here and for sharing some coaching with my audience. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I appreciate you, Caryn.
Thank you again, Laura, for being here. Isn't it interesting how many podcasts I can do about newsletters and writing to your list? Because this is not our first one. In fact, the one that went live this morning was also about this, which makes me just want to do some normalization for all of us. We don't know. It's sort of like imagine if you had to write a Christmas letter 52 times every year. Every single week, you write a Christmas letter. You're rounding up interesting information. You're doing that thing you do one time a year, every single week. If it feels like that, it's probably too high stakes in your brain, for one. But I think that really gets at how it's not a normal thing to be like, I'm going to broadcast something to a whole bunch of different people and have it be valuable. I don't know that I know how to do that. What I know how to do is write an email to someone. And so that's what I really want everyone to take away. Like, go write an email to someone, go be helpful to one person. Because if you can be helpful to one person, it will translate to everyone or, the right folks. If you try to write for everyone, most of the time things get lost, things get missed. It's not the same. It always reminds me of reading memoirs. And every single memoir I've read, I have like so much respect and love for the person who wrote it. And I found myself in their memoir, even if our lives were completely different. And I think that's true about how we connect as human beings. We need that one on one connection, that piece of intimacy to really connect. And you can't do that if you're broadcasting to thousands, but you can do that if you write to one and you're writing to one person. Just so happens that hundreds or thousands of single people will open the email. So go be free. Go find the rules and drop them as best you can. If you need my help, please come find me. I can help you do this. This is something I'm doing all the time. Yeah, that's it. Okay. And if you've got a friend who keeps telling you they need to get their newsletter going and they haven't done it yet, I hope you'll share this episode with them. Thank you for being here.